Welcome back to another episode of Financial Fortitude. I'm Michael Acosta.
And I'm Brady Hemmerly.
One of our favorite parts about doing this podcast is hearing directly from our listeners. Whether it's through our AMA page, LinkedIn, or email, many of our best episode ideas come from the questions you're already asking. Today's episode is exactly that. We received a great email from one of our longtime listeners after she listened to our episode on 529 plans. She had two follow-up questions that were thoughtful, practical, and honestly, questions we hear quite a bit from parents and business owners.
Her question centered around two ideas. First, if you own a 529 plan in your own name instead of your child's name, can you still take advantage of the Secure Act 2.0 provision, allowing unused $529 to eventually move to a Roth IRA for said child? And second, if you're a business owner who's employing your children strategically, why can't you simply make an employer 401k contribution for them the same way that you would do for yourself?
Those questions open the door to a much bigger conversation about how to intentionally build wealth for your children while understanding the rules that govern different account types. As always, today's discussion is educational in nature and isn't individualized tax, legal, or financial advice. Your situation may be different, so be sure to work with your CPA and financial advisor before implementing any planning strategies.
Are you considering hiring a financial advisor? If so, be sure to listen to episode 1 of Financial Fortitude. In this episode, we discuss the reasons why many people choose to hire a financial advisor and highlight the key qualities you should look for in the financial professional you decide to work with. Well, let's dive into this, Michael. I'm excited for today's episode because it's two, I would say, more specific questions, but questions that we would hear more often than you'd think. And it goes beyond the simple strategy of should I use my 401k or not? Or should I put money into my own brokerage account or not, right? We're kind of taking a step into that second layer of I'm doing a lot of the basics on my own. I'm trying to be more strategic and kind of work within the guidelines of how a lot of these complexities work. And the real effort of doing such is putting my child in a position where they can get ahead, whether it's educationally or a kickstart to their retirement.
Yeah, and I think for most parents, if there's an opportunity to give our kids a head start from where we started off, why not, right? Especially as we live in a world that's ever evolving and seems at times becoming more difficult financially for individuals and families to jumpstart themselves, right? Coming out of college and trying to get into a career. So love the questions that she was able to offer and I'm super excited to unravel these.
Yeah, so if we jump back to the question itself, it's I've opened a 529 plan. I'm the owner of that plan. The child is the beneficiary to that plan. Can I still make that future Roth conversion 15, 18, 22 years from now when my child's officially done college is really the pros of that question itself. Before jumping perhaps straight to the answer, what are some of the thoughts that you initially have, or perhaps some of the questions that you have to ask back to our listener before you can jump straight to, hey, here's the best answer?
I would ask first, what are you wanting to hopefully accomplish with this account registration or these dollars for your child? Right? I think so many parents will immediately ask, well, which account should I open? And I think that's not really the right question per se. It's more of, well, how do I plan on using these funds? Right? Because there's different accounts out there that we've talked about in previous episodes, 529s, UTMAs, UGMAs, Trump accounts, Roth IRAs that can be used to be able to help accumulate wealth and jumpstart that wealth building engine for our children, right? But again, it comes back to what is the purpose of these dollars? Is it for college? Is it for their future retirement? Is it for the down payment on first home? Is it financial flexibility and optionality and once they gain access to the funds, or is it more legacy focused? So I would say, hey, let's first figure out what are we using these funds for? Now, it sounds like she's outlined that to, hey, I want to be able to put money aside for their future retirement. One way to do that is to establish a 529 plan, as you noted, and as long as it's open for 15 years, whatever amount is remaining up to a lifetime conversion amount of $35,000 can be shifted over into Roth IRA dollars for the child. Now, the benefit of taking this path as opposed to just opening up a custodial Roth IRA for a child is that in this scenario, the child doesn't necessarily have to have income. If the child's going to have their own Roth IRA, even if it's a custodial one, meaning that it's a Roth IRA and the benefit of the child, but overseen by an adult since they're a minor, they still have to have earned income.
Yeah, so I think that's the key here, and this is going to be kind of a hybrid episode because in this Ask Me Anything, the client actually has both, right? But in many examples, this is the only path to the Roth IRA when your child especially is younger, because if I'm a W-2 earner and my child from age 0 to 10 does not hold a job or produce income of any kind, I'm locked out of using the Roth IRA. Now, if my child
Correct.
gets a job as a teenager, as an 18-year-old, as a 19-year-old, right, we can start to work together to put funds in a Roth IRA for them at that stage, but it's going to take some time to actually do that. But I love how you outline first and foremost, hey, before jumping straight to an answer, right, because we can give you the answer. But before jumping to the answer is making sure, hey, the strategy that you're employing is aligned with the ultimate goal that you have. And it sounds like from this question, the goal is a hybrid between I want to put money aside for college. And in addition to putting money aside for college, if as, or perhaps expecting that there'll be some money left over, I want to make sure that money gets put away for my child's retirement.
Yeah, and I would say you could accomplish multiple opportunities, right? Multiple objectives if you start early enough and you allocate the right amount of dollars.
Yep.
And so I don't think when it comes to figuring out from a starting point of which is going to be the best account, again, that's not the right answer or the right question. The right question to ask is, how can I accomplish as many of the goals that I want for my children personally as a parent across various account registrations? Now, it doesn't need to be over complex, but if we were going to simplify it, as a business owner with 4 young children, if I open up a 529 plan when every single one of them is born, right, they're at least going to give me 18 years worth of contributions before they go off for their freshman year of college. If I can contribute $300 a month into a 529 plan that's registered in my name for the benefit of my child, and again, the reason why we do that is because it's going to be counted less percentage-wise on the FAFSA when we're applying for financial aid with the federal government or the education department. But if I do $300 a month and it grows at an average rate net of taxes and fees of 8% over 18 years, that ends up being $145,607. Okay. Now, one of the requirements to start the conversion from 529 to Roth IRA is the account has to be open for a minimum of at least 15 years. So they're 18. I opened it right when they were born and we got the Social Security number. We meet that at least first hurdle requirement. Now we have $145,000. If we're only needing $100,000 to be able to $110,000 to fund the 4 years worth of college, along with any sort of scholarships or grants or whatever that the children receive, we can still accomplish converting $35,000 into a Roth IRA for the children or the child, the benefactor in that scenario. So we've effectively taken advantage of 2 opportunities with a single account registration, at least from the onset.
Got it. And we've had a tax-efficient experience along the way, right? We're not paying taxes on the gains within the 529 account used for college. We're rolling over money without paying taxes within that $35,000 bucket or limit as to what the child can actually move into their own name. But if we go back to the question, and I'm going to rewind you a little bit, talk to me more about if I'm a parent, you're a parent, and you're opening a 529 for your child. Talk to me a little bit more about who owns the 529 versus who's the benefactor and what are some of those advantages, disadvantages, because that's really the pros of where that question's coming from. Do I need to do this a certain way?
Yeah, so I don't think we should let perfect become the enemy of good here, but I would say best course of action is trying to take this asset that we're setting up for our child and make it as compressed as possible on the FAFSA application, meaning that we want it to be counted at the lowest percentage possible as an available asset for the student, right? The applicant for FAFSA. If you open up a 529 that's owned by the child for the benefit of the child, it's going to be accounted for at a higher percentage, over 15%.
Similar to like a UTMA as an example?
Similar to like a UTMA, correct.
Yep.
Now, if it's a 529 plan in the name of the parent for the benefit of the child, it's going to be still a countable asset, but it's going to be an accountable asset somewhere around 5% on the FAFSA. Okay. Now, if you have the 529 plan opened by a grandparent or an uncle or an aunt or godparent for the benefit of the child, now it is considered a non-countable asset. It does not show up on the FAFSA at all. Okay. So best case scenario, depending on what your extended family situation looks like and age of grandparents and trust with aunts and uncles and siblings in that situation, best case scenario is just you as a parent opening it up in your name for the benefit of your child. It's still going to be counted, but it's going to be counted at a less percentage than if it were just owned outright by them.
So regardless of whether you as the parent owns or the grandparent owns, that's more of a FAFSA question. I guess the real question that we're working towards is, okay, I'm the owner, or grandma and grandpa are the owner, and the child's the beneficiary. Do I need to move the 529 plan into their ownership, let's say after they graduate or their finished education, to actually complete the rollover itself into the Roth account? Or can I do that in the same structure that we've initially set up for FAFSA reasons?
Yeah, you can do it in the exact same structure as you had set it up for the FAFSA, right? So even if it's still owned by the parent for the benefit of the child, when you get ready to do the conversions, only the new Roth IRA that's opened up in the name of the child is what's really going to be required.
Owned by the
as a
child
step.
at that point.
Yep,
Yeah.
owned by the child at that point. And then it's just a simple conversion form that you're submitting with the dollar amount that's allowed for that given year, right? So for 2026, the limit is $7,500 as far as direct contribution to a Roth IRA. So in this case, you're subject to that. So next year for 2027, if it goes up to $8,000, then the amount you would be able to convert from the 529 to the Roth in that given year would be $8,000, not $7,500.
So let's break that down then, because there's some complexity here that I think a lot of people miss. What you're telling me is I can't make that. If I use your example before, I grow my money inside the 529 to $145,000. I spend $100,000 in college costs. I now have $35,000 and some change left over. What you're telling me is I can't move all $35,000 into a Roth right away?
Nope, not right away. It's a lifetime convertible amount, right? So it's going to be subject to the annual Roth IRA contribution limits as far as what you're able to convert in a single year.
Got it. So if I'm the parent and I have a beneficiary child, I may have $35,000 extra sitting in their 529 account, but if I use this here as an example, in 2026, I can only move $7,500 into that account this year, and then I have to do it again the following year.
Correct. And you could end up with money left over. That doesn't mean that the dollars are lost forever into this abyss that is known as a 529, because you can always change the benefactor. So if you have multiple children and this is what you were doing for your eldest child, anything that's left over, you could just then reposition to be the benefit of the beneficiary of your second oldest child. Or if your oldest child who was originally assigned as the benefactor for this account ends up having their own children, well, now this can be a legacy gift or a generational gift to where now their child gets to participate as the beneficiary of that 529 plan.
Got it. Now, other question that I have for you. If I move the $7,500, I now know I've got to break it up into pieces. I can't do the entire $35,000 at once. Does my child have to work for that to be a possibility?
Yes. So they do have to be working and they do have to have earned income in order to make that conversion, right? So I think this is where the terminology can get a little confusing, because when you do a conversion, you're basically traditionally you're moving money from a pre-tax IRA into a Roth IRA. You don't technically have to have earned income in that scenario to make that conversion. But in this scenario, with the newly opened Roth IRA, the child has to have earned income, eligible earned income, to be able to make that $7,500 conversion in 2026.
So as a great example of this, if I am the child and have graduated from an undergrad degree, but I'm now going back to school, I'm taking a year off, I'm not actually working for a brief period of time, it is quite possible that I may have to delay ultimately moving money from the 529 into the Roth IRA until I actually am reporting income.
Correct.
Okay. Alrighty. What did we miss here in this question? What else comes to mind, if anything? What I think we've summarized so far is parent or grandparent or any other relative can still own the 529 with child as the beneficiary and still make the Roth conversion in quotation marks. There doesn't really need to be any rearranging of who owns the plan itself. There are some complexities. There's limits on how much can be moved over. We've got to do it in smaller chunks. The child has to have reportable income of some kind. And I think the big summary point in all of this is determining whether this actual strategy is the right one based on what you're looking to accomplish. But anything else that came to mind as you were answering some of these questions?
The only other thing that I would emphasize is that just be mindful in doing some due diligence or research around whether or not the state that you reside in offers any sort of tax deductions for contributions to your 529 plan. Don't just assume that they do. And if they don't assume that you are only limited to participating in your state's 529 plan. Very often we'll have clients who reside in a state similar to North Carolina where you're not given any tax benefits by the state for making contributions into the state 529 plan. Now, what does that mean? That means that you can now go participate in any of the other 49 states 529 plans if you want to, depending on your preference around who the money manager is going to be, whether it's Vanguard, whether it's BlackRock, whether it's State Street, whether it's American Funds, also known as Capital Group. Again, you have a little bit more flexibility. So just make sure that you understand what you're giving up based off of where you're setting that 529 plan up. And if you set it up in a state that's not really offering you any real benefit and you're not in love with it, you can always transfer it to another state's 529 plan. You're not subject to leave it there for the full 18 years or however long it takes for your child to get ready to go off to college or complete their education.
So next question, if we jump into the second portion of this question, I talked about the 529 situation. I'm putting money away for my kids. This goes into another fold of complexity here, but it is simply if I am a business owner and I have worked with my accountant CPA and I am employing my children strategically. The question is really centered around why can I not just simply put money inside of my 401k plan or the company's 401k plan the same way that I would do it myself?
So basically with this situation, the reason why you're not able to just put it directly into your child's 401k portion of the plan that you're creating for your business, the plan that you're sponsoring for your business, is because very likely they're not going to satisfy the minimum plan document requirements to be an eligible participant in the plan, right? So if you work for someone else, you more than likely already satisfy most of the requirements, and those requirements are going to be based off of a minimum age. So more often than not, there's an age requirement of age 21. That's going to be most common. In some places, age could be as low as 18, right? Depending on the type of work and the average age of the employees that are typically coming and conducting work in the business.
So there's example number one. If I'm a minor, right, I don't satisfy that requirement.
Correct. So then you're not going to be eligible to participate. Hours worked. So traditionally, there's going to be hour requirement of about 1,000 hours during a 12-month period, and that's going to be common for most eligibility. So if your child's, again, a minor and not working at least 1,000 hours a year in your business, then that's going to be strike number 2 from an eligibility standpoint. The other one is going to be length of service. So more often than not, 401k plan sponsors or the employers will establish a service requirement of up to 1 year of service, defined as 12 months, before participants become eligible. Now, why do business owners do that? Well, they do that so that they can protect themselves for any participants that fall victim to high turnover.
Got it.
You don't want to, as a business owner, be onboarding participants who are only going to be there for a month or two and then have to offboard them. It becomes more costly and more of a time suck than anything else.
Got it. So
it's less productive.
That was going to be my question is like, hey, if I'm the business owner and I'm the one controlling the 401k, why would I put up those gates that would restrict my child from being there? And what you have essentially explained is, well, the reason those gates are in place because I'm likely, if I have a 401k plan, I'm likely employing others. And if so, I want to make sure that the right employees are getting on the 401k bus that I've set up, right? If I'm going to make contributions on their behalf, I want them to be bought into actually working here.
Yeah. Now, I guess you could also say, okay, well, if you're a solopreneur and you're never planning on hiring other employees outside of maybe your child, then maybe you don't have as stringent of requirements from a plan document standpoint, but then you could be opening yourselves up to other gray areas and then limiting yourself from an expansionary standpoint, right? I feel as though most business owners try to get to a point where they can scale, and it's a different focal point of the conversation, but as a business owner, if you want to sell your business, it has to be scalable and it has to be able to operate without you at the helm for you to get the highest multiple when you take it to the market to try to offload it and sell it to someone else. if you're limiting yourself to not be able to expand and hire those people who can help you scale, then that's going to be a headache in itself. You're going to have the plain document of the 401k redrafted, which costs extra money.
Yeah.
So
you're picking up pennies.
It's not the end of the world, but you're picking up pennies and stepping over dollars.
Yeah, effectively just to put your kid into a plan, if that's even possible through the plan sponsor. Okay, so you've kind of outlined here, it is not as efficient, or perhaps would just not be an eligibility situation for your kid to jump right into a 401k plan. With that in mind, talk to us about, as either a solopreneur or an entrepreneur with employees, how can I, if my goal is to put money away for my kids as efficiently as possible, like what alternatives do I have? How else can I accomplish that if the 401k is not the avenue?
Yeah, if the 401k is not the avenue, then I think we try to keep it as simple, stupid as possible, right? And we're obviously not CPAs or tax experts as far as tax filings go, but what we often see is business owners will pay their children a salary close to or up to the standard deduction in any given year. So for 2026, the standard deduction for a single filer, I believe, is $16,200. Okay. A business owner who has a child who is of an age that the CPA thinks is allowable to be employed, right, in some capacity, whether it's modeling, whether it's shredding paper, whether it's sweeping in the warehouse, whatever, right? You define the role and responsibilities, and if the CPA approves it or thinks that it's okay, then you can proceed with it. But most business owners are going to pay somewhere around, let's call it $6,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, right? Others will be more aggressive and do the full standard deduction. Now, the idea here is that you pay them up to the standard deduction because then they effectively have no taxable income. I pay someone $12,000. I pay one of my daughters or my son $12,000. The standard deduction on their single tax filing is $16,200. So 12 minus 16 is a negative number. They effectively have no taxable income. Now, what does the business owner save there? Well, the business owner saves, on average, close to 35% in self-employment tax. So on $12,000, that's effectively $4,200 in self-employment tax that I just saved.
So let's pause there for a moment. Right, you're saving that tax money because the income is flowing through your child's return at effectively zero.
Correct.
But if that same income would have flowed through your wife and yourself, your own return, it would be hit at, call it 30, 35%.
Correct, because as a business owner, not to get too deep into the weeds, you're paying both sides of the Social Security tax and the Medicare tax.
So the money's still staying in the same house, right? But it's coming into that house without getting that 35% tax shavings off of it first, just because of the strategic move that you made.
Correct. And so then once that...
Yep.
Correct. And so once that $12,000 hits my child's custodial checking account, right? Now we can fund the 529 plan, right? Now we can fund a Roth IRA for them, even if it's a custodial Roth IRA. Now we can fund the UTMA, the UGMA account, or if we want to open up a custodial brokerage account or even a Trump account, like those are things that can be facilitated with these $12,000. The question that we then have to ask ourselves is, how should the $12,000 be allocated accordingly across the 1 to 2 to 3 different account registrations that we're going to leverage for their benefit?
Or in some instances, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but what we see many clients employ is, I'm employing my child, I'm using this as more of a tax strategy, and I'm just taking those funds and turning them around, and it's helping pay for the support that is just ongoing for them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you mean whether it's, paying for their summer activities, paying for after school curriculum,
private school education, like
private
all
school
of that
education,
stuff, right?
like all that. Exactly. Yep. You could do it for that. For business owners who are just getting to a point to where they have the capacity from a cash flow perspective to conduct this type of strategy, their children may already be about to start college. So there's not enough of a runway to really fuel up a 529 plan. Well, now you can still leverage this plan. It may just be a little less tax efficient. What do I mean? Well, if you're going through the FAFSA, your child's going to attend as a freshman a local public university, and the financial gap between what's being offered to them by way of financial aid and scholarships versus the cost of attending there is, say, let's call it $20,000. If you have the capacity to do so, you could pay your child $20,000, and of that $20,000, $16,200 would be non-taxable. Right? So it's still tax effective, but they're then going to turn around and pay taxes at their, let's call it 10% marginal tax rate on the remaining, $3,800.
Which is still better than your 35%.
35%. Correct.
Yep.
Correct. So you're not skirting the taxes completely, but you're definitely mitigating them.
Got it. So I guess in summary, or at least what I'm gathering from this question is similar to our prior question, is before we take any action or jump straight to our end solution, the real question or questions to ask ourselves is, hey, what is the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish here, right? I have these excess dollars. I want to put them to work for my child. What is the purpose of these funds? What are they working towards? Is it education? Is it future retirement? Is it first home down payment? Is it, hey, just satisfying the expenses that they need on a day-to-day basis to make it from where we are now to where they're independent fully? And then thereafter, it becomes much easier to see, I would say in a large majority of business owner cases, that 401k plans are likely not the place to put extra dollars for your child just based on eligibility requirements and likely the way that your business is structured. But that doesn't stop you from using a variety of other accounts to put money to work in the most tax efficient manner.
Correct.
So what did we miss here? What comes to mind here, if anything else specific?
Yeah, I would just say try to work through the noise that you're hearing on social media or blog posts or the talking heads in the media. A lot of what people will hear that bring to the conversations that we have in our consultations is focused on, I need to open up an LLC in some capacity so that I can put my children on payroll and pay them to fund college or to fund their retirement or to open up a Roth IRA for them. Or, hey, I need to open up a Roth IRA for my newborn. How do I do that? Well, you can't. They don't have earned income. Or, I want to try to use a 529 plan to fund all these other goals, which in some capacity you can, right? 529 plans are pretty cool vehicles when used with the right intentionality, right? So you could technically pay for real estate with a 529 plan in theory, to the extent that, you buy a home that's on campus somewhere, right? As long as the monthly mortgage payment or the monthly rent, quote unquote, that you're charging your child who's renting it and any of their friends who are tenants, as long as your child's portion is not more than what it would cost to cover room and board on campus, that's technically a qualifying expense from the 529 plan. So that could be one way to leverage that to achieve a handful of goals aside from just paying for qualifying education or tuition. And, I need to be putting dollars in my child's name so that they can be set up for success in the future and have a head start. Well, that's admirable and that's great, but have you taken enough of an audit of your own circumstances to determine, okay, well, does it really make a difference if these extra dollars that I'm saving are in my and my wife's name or just my name as opposed to being in my child's name?
Yeah.
Right? Because we can always keep it in our name and gift it to them at a later date. There's nothing keeping you from doing that. And I wouldn't say that there's any real setback or limitations or anything that you're giving up, other than once you put it in your child's name, you're relinquishing control over it to an extent.
So I'd say in summary there, it's just understanding that just collecting every trading card of I've got the Roth, I've got the 529, I've got the everything here, right? That's less impactful than actually understanding, hey, there's a rhyme and a reason to why I own this, how it works, how it fits within my plan and my child's future plan. So to summarize, to our listener, Katie from Maryland, thank you again for sending in these questions. We love hearing from people who are thinking several steps ahead because those conversations usually benefit everyone listening.
Absolutely. One of the goals of the podcast is to make financial planning more approachable. And sometimes that means taking a great listener question and expanding it into an entire episode. If you've ever listened to one of our episodes and thought, I wish they would have covered this, send us your question. There's a good chance our listeners are wondering the exact same thing.
And if you enjoyed today's conversation, we'd really appreciate if you'd subscribe to the show, leave us a review, and share this episode with someone who's trying to build a stronger future for themselves and the next generation.
Thanks again for listening in, and until next time,
keep building your financial fortitude.
Are you considering hiring a financial advisor? If so, be sure to listen to episode 1 of Financial Fortitude. In this episode, we discuss the reasons why many people choose to hire a financial advisor and highlight the key qualities you should look for in the financial professional you decide to work with. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Although the information has been gathered from sources believed to be reliable, please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Guest speakers and their firms are not affiliated with or endorsed by Park Avenue Securities, Guardian, or Genesis Wealth Planning LLC, and opinions stated are their own. Guardian, its subsidiaries, agents, and employees do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Consult your tax, legal, or accounting professional regarding your individual situation. All investments and investment strategies contain risk and may lose value. All scenarios and names mentioned herein are purely fictional and have been created solely for educational purposes. Any resemblance to existing situations, persons, or fictional characters is coincidental. The information presented should not be used as the basis for any specific investment advice. Michael Acosta and Brady are registered representatives and financial advisors of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PAS. Securities, products, and advisory services offered through Park Avenue Securities, member FINRA, SIPC. Financial representatives of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. Park Avenue Securities is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Consolidated Planning Group, Inc. and Genesis Wealth Planning, LLC are not affiliates or subsidiaries of Park Avenue Securities or Guardian. Michael Acosta's California Insurance License Number 0M50974 and Brady Hammerly's California Insurance License Number 4353077.
7237198.42, expiration 828.